This is 8.3b of geometry. So we're going to use sine, cosine, and tangent again. So we're going to use SOHCAHTOA. And so far we've used it with an angle measure and a side and to find another side. But now what we can do is we can use it to find an angle measure. So let's start by looking at this triangle here. This one. We're going to find angle X. So I marked it there. So first thing I should do is I should label my sides. So the hypotenuse, that's the one across from the right angle. This one's adjacent next to it. And this one is opposite the other side, the other angle. Okay. So I have a number for my opposite side and my hypotenuse side. So I'm going to use sine, right? So the sine of, and I don't know the angle measure, but I know that it's angle X. So we'll just use X. The sine of X is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, which is 6 over 10. If I want to simplify that, the sine of X is equal to 0.6. But now I've got a problem. I need to get rid of the sine out front. I just want X to be alone. So there's this thing to undo it. In the same way that multiplying and dividing undo each other, and adding and subtracting undo each other, and squaring and square rooting undo each other, we can undo sine using the inverse of sine, or sine inverse. So, and that's what this looks like. Sine with a little -1 up top. So the inverse of sine, or sine inverse, undoes or undoes, or however you want to say that, sine. We've got cosine inverse that undoes cosine. And we've got tangent inverse, right? Those are all little -1s. And that undoes or undoes tangent. So what I need to do is I need to take the sine inverse of both sides. So I'm going to do sine inverse, and we had sine of X. And then I'm going to do the sine inverse of 0.6. So on the left, that sine and sine inverse are going to cancel out, and we're just left with X. So X equals the sine inverse of 0.6. Then I need to do that on my calculator. The sine inverse of 0.6 is about 36.9 degrees. So that angle X is 36.9 degrees. And then we'll do the same thing again over here. So we're still looking for angle X. So this one's my hypotenuse. This one's my adjacent. This one is my opposite. So I've got adjacent and hypotenuse, which means I'm going to use cosine. So the cosine of X is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse, which is 15 over 20. If I put that as a decimal, because that's easier to type into my calculator, I get 0.75. Then to get rid of cosine, I need to do the cosine inverse of both sides. So the cosine inverse of the cosine of X and the cosine inverse of 0.75. So on the left, I'm just left with X. So X equals the cosine inverse of 0.75. And when I do that on my calculator, I get that X is equal to 41.4 degrees. And there's your homework.